In this video, I'll show you how to transform your small home studio into a mini circus. Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that's got everything for us photographers. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to turn your small home studio into a circus. Now, nothing says circus like a good stripy background, and if you're lucky, you might be able to find the perfect stripy fabric. But if you're only going to do this occasionally, the easiest way is just to get cheap red and white fabric, cut it into thin strips, and hang it from the wall. If you're going to do this more than once, you might want to consider investing the time in painting red stripes on white fabric. But trust me, that simple sounding idea took absolutely ages, but it is worth it. So with the background up, all I need to do now is set some lights up, let's get a model in, let's get shooting. So to help me out with this circus themed shoot, I've got the amazing Brian. Now, as you can see, Brian is dressed appropriately for our makeshift circus background. Now, where can you get an outfit like this? Well, circus outfits are often found in your local hire store. Costume hire, fancy dress, that kind of thing, often have circus looks like our ringmaster here, or you can put it together yourself. However you do it, once you've got your look created, you're going to want to take some pictures. So let's start with a really simple basic lighting and build from there. Now to begin with, I'm going to use a single light. So I've got an eVOLV 200 in a 70cm softbox. I'm just going to put some general lighting on here. I don't really want to target Brian too much because he's going to have some flamboyant moves, I suspect. And we need to have that little bit of leeway on the lighting to allow him to do that. So I've already meted this out for f5.6. Let's take a few shots like this and see how it looks. Okay, Brian, here we go. One thing you'll notice in these pictures is I am not including the floor in my shot, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is we just don't have the space. This is a small home studio and I can't get far enough back to do a full-length shot including the floor without using a really wide-angle lens. And the second one is, well, the floor doesn't look the part. I could of course put some straw or something down here to create a circus floor, but if you can't see it, you don't have to worry about it. So now I've taken the same basic setup of a single light, but added two more lights. And they're going to be lights right behind Brian here. So it's just another two eVOLV 200s pointing straight back at the camera. This should give some fantastic flair, a real sort of theatrical look to this setup, which I think it really needs. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to start with those back two lights on their lowest possible power. Always start there because it can be quite blinding. So lowest possible power, here we go, Brian. And I can clearly see that they're in the shot. I'm going to try increasing the power by 2 stops. So from 1/128th power up to 1/32nd power. And we'll take the same sort of shot again. And that's starting to look much better. Now we have a little bit of flare coming through. But remember, these lights back here give good flare in the shots, but also they light the back of Brian. So too much light from these and I'll lose all of the detail. Too little and it doesn't quite work. In a small home studio with this amount of distance, this is the perfect setting. So let's take a few shots like this. So as well as having white lights behind Brian, this is the circus, it should be full of colour. So I think we should have some coloured gels on those lights and maybe just a bit of smoke as well. Let's start with no smoke. Yeah, we're going to give you a loud halo this time. Okay, so you're going to be shouting up at me. Right, I think it's time for some smoke. With this shoot, you might have found the perfect circus outfit, had made an amazing DIY circus background, but all of that will count for nothing unless you've got the right model. Actually, you don't need a model. What you need is an actor, and someone who can play the part. And in this case, Brian played the part of a ringmaster superbly well. It made the photos really come to life. Let's have a look at one. So here's the image I want to edit. And I said earlier on I didn't want to target Brian with the key light. By that I meant I didn't want to have a really tight beam of light because he needed to move around. But I want the look of a tight beam of light. I'm going to get that here using Camera Raw in Photoshop. So I'm going to get the radial filter and I'm going to get my exposure, and we'll have my exposure maybe 1.5 stops, something like that, just to make it a little bit darker as I drag out a very thin sort of oval shape. Move my cursor outside and I can rotate this around and just pop it over Brian, something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now that's okay, but I reckon I could do with a bit of clarity in here as well. So I'm going to take the clarity and increase it and increase. Actually, I'm going to go all the way up to maximum. The whole look of this was a sort of distressed feel. That's what I was going for. And lots of clarity around the outside makes that come to life. So I'm happy with that. Let's just change tools to the zoom tool and go back to my basic panel. And I think the next thing to do is color. So I love the red color here, but the blue doesn't really stand out. It's quite wishy-washy. So I'm going to rebias the white balance to the blue side. By coming to my temperature and moving the slider towards the blue, I can make the blue a lot more bold. And I think that balance is better with blue and the warmish reddish color. It does affect Brian's face. I'll need to come back and change that, I think. Anything else I need to change here? Well, lots of smoke means I have to increase the contrast to really cut through the smoke. And the colours, in all of the photos, I actually pulled the vibrance back slightly, which might seem a little bit silly, but in fact what it does is it just mutes the colours down, and again, for this styling, seem to work rather well. So those are all global changes, but having done that, there's going to be a few smaller local things I need to adjust. And to do that, I'm going to use a different tool. I'm going to use the adjustment brush. So that's a little brush icon up here. And let's start with the right-hand side, because now I can see the circle of the actual light itself. I couldn't see that before. That was gone when I had the original shot. I think that must be the vignette that's making that happen. So I'm going to get maybe 1 stop more exposure, and I'm just going to make the whole area just a little bit brighter like that. Whilst I'm going, let's make that a bit more flary as well, because I like flare in my photos. Next, I'm going to do Brian's face. So I'll click on the new button to make a new adjustment brush. Reset everything apart from a little bit more warmth on the temperature, and just paint a bit more warmth onto Brian's face. Not too much, just enough. Finally, it's the left-hand side. The loud hailer is the thing that's closest to the light, so it is quite bright. So let's see if we can darken that down a little bit with another new adjustment brush. This time maybe a stop less exposure, a little bit less on the highlights. All of these things can be changed, of course, after when I'm finished. I can always come back and adjust them. And your pictures, well, you're going to need to do your own adjustments. These are specific to my shots. Okay, that's pretty much everything done. And with a little more adjustments, there it is. There's my DIY circus shot completed. If you've enjoyed this video, leave me a comment below. And of course, remember to click on the subscribe button. Even better, click on the bell icon to get regular notifications about brand new videos right here on Adorama TV. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.